A huge congratulations to Sunderland on achieving promotion back to the Premier League. As for my club, Boro, well, I hope the club were watching closely. What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel, and today we witnessed Sunderland return to the Premier League after the 8 years away, the same number of years that Boro spent away, because in the time that we've both been relegated from the top flight, Sunderland spent 4 of them years languishing in League One, and it's took them only 3 seasons with 2 playoff finishes to get themselves back to the Premier League, whereas Boro are seemingly back to the start, going through the same cycle we have been for near enough the last decade, stuck in mid-table mediocrity. Now, of course, I'd be lying if I was saying that I'm not incredibly annoyed and upset at seeing Newcastle winning at Wembley, winning the League Cup, and then seeing Sunderland have their own Wembley celebrations, winning in the playoff final. Of course, as one of the big 3 North East clubs, it is incredibly frustrating. I'd be lying if I said it wasn't, to see them both achieving success on an uphill trajectory and seemingly doing really well as football clubs, whereas we are stuck, stagnant in the Championship, seemingly forever. But it's not just that I think we have a rivalry with Sunderland. I know there'll be Sunderland fans in the comments mocking me and joking about rivalry, what rivalry, derby, it's not a derby, etc. But even if it wasn't Sunderland who'd achieved what they've achieved, and even if it wasn't down to their geography of where they are, or if it isn't a derby or a rivalry, Sunderland are another side in a long list of teams that once upon a time, not that long ago, were behind Boro in the pyramid. They were languishing not only in the same league below Boro, but actually in the league below. They've came up and they've surpassed us in the same time to which we've achieved, well, absolutely nothing. Now, 8 years ago, both Boro and Sunderland were relegated to the Championship after a dreadful campaign for both sides in the Premier League. But it was the following season where the fortunes really turned. Sunderland suffered back-to-back relegations, of course, to League One, with changes of manager, changes of ownership. Things were just an absolute car crash, both on and off the pitch, and it looked like Sunderland were possibly in freefall. Boro, meanwhile, spent upwards of £60 million doing everything to get themselves back to the Premier League at the first time of asking, which of course led to us going through 2 managers as well, ultimately falling short under Tony Pulis in the playoffs, where we lost to Aston Villa without registering a single shot on target. In the 4 years that followed, Sunderland began rebuilding their way back to the second tier with numerous highs and lows, whereas Boro just recklessly ran through manager after manager after manager, trying numerous different styles of play and ultimately coming through with nothing to show for it. In that time, Sunderland lost in 2 separate playoff campaigns, going from Jack Ross to Phil Parkinson, from Lee Johnson to Alex Neil, before finally getting themselves back promoted to the Championship in 2022. They changed owner as well, with current owner Kirill Louis-Dreyfus coming in as the majority owner in 2023, whereas Boro narrowly missed out on playoffs in 2019, almost got relegated to League One in 2020 under Jonathan Woodgate, before being dragged back into the playoff picture to some degree under Neil Warnock and Chris Wilder, but ultimately going no further forward than where we were back after we'd been relegated. We then look at 22-23, where Sunderland returned to the Championship in emphatic manner. They outperformed the majority of what recently newly promoted Championship sides had done, instantly getting themselves into the top 6, joining Boro that year. Of course, Mowbray's Sunderland and Carrick's Boro did fall short to Luton and Coventry respectively, but you then went into 23-24 looking at both Sunderland and Boro on the same level playing field. But even then, Sunderland still entered that season with a massive amount of instability compared to Boro. In 23-24, Sunderland sacked Tony Mowbray. They floundered under Mick Beale, whereas Boro seemed to be building. Yes, we'd lost a lot of players from the playoff season, but we were building a good squad and a good foundation that could really go into 24 and 25 in a fantastic position. We had a manager who'd been here for a relatively long time. We made an effort to retain our best players, and of the two clubs, you'd have to say going into 24-25, which did look like a massive golden opportunity for a side like Boro or Sunderland to get themselves promoted to the Premier League, you looked at both sides heading into this season and you'd have put money on Boro looking the far more likely. Of course, Sunderland brought in a relatively unknown French manager and gambled on Régis Le Bris, but even then, you still thought Boro were in a much better position under Michael Carrick. As it happens, Régis Le Bris took Sunderland to promotion at the first time of asking. He had them fighting in an automatic promotion race with three massively financially powerful recently relegated sides, basically keeping Sunderland in the top four for the entirety of the season, of course culminating in a playoff final victory, whereas Boro continued to limp and ponder and splutter their way through an inconsistent, underwhelming season, eventually falling to a limp 10th place finish, falling back into the same mid-table mediocrity and falling back into the same cycle that we've been in for the last 8 seasons. Now, as I said at the start of the video, this is not just a culmination of our northeast neighbours having huge success, and once again, massive congratulations to them, but it's also the culmination of seeing so many other clubs seeing themselves back to the top flight, having success, having promotion when they were once well below Boro in the pyramid. The likes of Brentford, Brighton, Bournemouth have all established themselves as top Premier League sides. You've had Ipswich, Luton and now Sunderland, who spent time in League One not so long ago, surpassing Boro and having themselves playing Premier League football. Like Sunderland, you've got Coventry, who've achieved the same number of playoff finishes in the last 3 years as Boro have in our last 8. The bottom line is, this isn't sour grapes to Sunderland. Congratulations to them once again. They've continued to progress and grow, and when it mattered, they found a way back to the Premier League. And they deserve it. They took their opportunities, whereas Boro have thrown away chance after chance after chance. Not only in this season, but in recent seasons. How many 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th place finishes is it going to take before we could be teetering once again on the brink of another failed manager's tenure and the cycle of championship mediocrity starting all over again next season? Now, Boro have been in an thorough internal review for 3 weeks now, with no outcome seemingly imminent. Now, I'm not saying the club don't want promotion, and I'm not saying they're not trying their very best to, but I've got to say some of the decisions that this club are making seem really unserious and really ponderous. You don't replace a top coach like Aaron Danks, who went on to Bayern Munich, and replace him with Michael Carrick's brother, who might be a good coach in his own right, but had only managed in Newcastle's youth system. You don't give Carrick a coaching team of 2 former Boro players in Grant Leadbitter and Jonathan Woodgate, and no one can tell me they were the 2 coaches that Carrick wanted. Boro handed him them coaches. If Carrick went to a Premier League side tomorrow, he obviously isn't going to take Grant Leadbitter and Jonathan Woodgate with him, so we've gave him a very inexperienced coaching setup with jobs that are seemingly for the boys at Boro. You don't get rid of Emmanuel Latelath and continue to sell your best assets in January and replace them with the likes of Kelechi Iheanacho, leaving yourself every single January in somewhat of a mid-season transition. You don't neglect your defence in January, seemingly making a team that couldn't already defend even weaker. And you can't spend 3 weeks in an internal review where we've had absolutely nothing, whereas all the other clubs around us have already made their ruthless decisions of management, of players, of staff, and are getting their houses in order for next season, whereas we're yet to do anything. My point is, Boro are heading into a summer now where the decisions we make are absolutely huge because, yes, what we've had this season hasn't been good enough and the underachievement is clear to see. But what's happening externally with clubs around us, whether they be rivals or not, seeing clubs that were on the same level as us surpass us, whereas we seemingly go absolutely nowhere, is only heightening the anger and frustration amongst Boro fans. And I think the standard of what will keep Boro fans happy has been raised now. And the only thing that will possibly get Boro fans back on side with this manager is if we see a significant change. If we go into this summer and we don't change much, it puts an unsurmountable amount of pressure on the start of next season, because you're going into it with a fan base that are already angry, frustrated and annoyed. But if next season starts really, really badly and we keep Michael Carrick, the tide will turn extremely quickly. Fans will turn on the ownership and instantly question why we kept him when we had a summer where we could have made a change and brought in someone new who could have had a whole pre-season and we could start the season with a new, fresh, clean slate. Instead of inevitably starting the season poorly, potentially sacking Carrick in October and playing catch-up in yet another championship campaign. The room for error for Michael Carrick with Boro fans now is pretty much nil. You know, there's a few that still believe he can do well, but I feel like they're only willing to give him the start of next season anyway. And if he happens to start badly, all the fans that want rid of him now and want to change now will be even angrier, and the fans who still had a little bit of faith in him will be no longer justified. And that means that next season, the start of it, things could turn nasty and they could turn toxic really quick if we choose to keep Michael Carrick. And I'm not sure that's a gamble that Steve Gibson should take. If he's going to probably go in October anyway, and we're banking on Boro having a great start, which we never ever do anyway, you may as well pull the trigger now, because at least then, if we bring in a new manager, a new fresh face, a new voice, it will give Boro fans a degree of optimism heading into next season, because for most of us, apathy has set in and there's no reason really to be all that optimistic going into next season at all. You've got the likes of Sheffield United remaining in the Championship next season, Ipswich, Southampton and Leicester coming down. You'll have Coventry, West Brom, Norwich, Bristol City and the likes ready to go again, as well as two teams coming up who honestly are probably as financially powerful as any two newly promoted sides we've ever seen before in Wrexham and Birmingham, who could massively disrupt the Championship unlike anything we've ever seen before from two newly promoted sides. Boro could literally feel the squeeze from both sides, and I just don't see at the moment under this manager, if things stay the same, why there's reason for anything to improve. Next season's league will be tougher. That seems inevitable. There's teams that are financially just as if not stronger than us, coming up and coming down. And if things stay the same and the same problems continue, to which they likely are, because why wouldn't they? They've lingered for 2 seasons pretty much now. The best Boro can probably hope for is another 10th to 12th place season at the very best. And that will not be anywhere near good enough. But that's where I feel we're heading at the moment. So at least make a change to give fans something to cling on to. A new voice, a new face, something that can unite us and give us some reason to be excited for next season. Because as it stands, if things stay as they are, we're going to continue to go around the same cycle, and we're just going to see more sides come up from the leagues below who've spent less time in the Championship than we have, surpass us and leave us languishing in this godforsaken league. But that's my thoughts. Again, congratulations to Sunderland getting themselves promoted. As a neutral, I will be looking forward to the Premier League next season and seeing the Tyne-Wear derby back in the Premier League. It is one of my favourite derby games and it is worthy of being a Premier League fixture, but this has just compounded what was already a really miserable season for Boro, and one I'm really relieved to be switching off from now. So there will be more Championship content to come, which isn't as Boro focused, but I am wanting to take a break from Boro content now because, quite honestly, it's taken its toll and I'm now just relieved the season's done. And I don't want to talk about Boro for a while now, unless of course there is a significant change, which sadly for the pessimistic me, I don't think there will be. So I'm just going to go into next season flat, apathetic, with no real expectations, hoping that we can pull a rabbit out the hat, or maybe we will make a change that will ignite the fire once again. But that is it for this season in the Championship. There is more content to come. As for Boro, who the hell knows what is to come. Maybe, likely, just more of the same. Take care, like the video if you've enjoyed it, subscribe for more, leave a comment in the section below, and I'll see you all in the next one.